Debbie Clunas, and I love Christmas. You know, the morning after Thanksgiving, we spend the majority of the time getting down the box after box of Christmas decorations. I want to make sure that I get everything put up that first weekend after Thanksgiving, so that leaves us the whole of December to not only enjoy Christmas, but to be prepared for it. One of the ways you can achieve quick decorating is by making up some things ahead of time. This particular swag up here is your standard green. In fact, this one was one of those really cheap ones that you get at the craft store. And I found that it's much, much cheaper, almost 25% of what the normal cost of a thick swag would be, by taking two and hooking them together. So you get a nice thick swag, but about half or a quarter of the price. And then we went out and got some pine cones and wired those on, put the poinsettias in, put the nice big bow on top, and of course you start first with the lights. Now, all you have to do is very carefully roll it up in a plastic garbage sack, and gee, next Christmas it'll take you 2 minutes to put up this whole big swag. Now right underneath it is a wonderful piece. Look at that violin. Doesn't that add just instant atmosphere? I can't even imagine how expensive something like this would be to purchase, but I found the violin at an estate sale. Now it's unplayable, it was broken and everything, but you know, I wasn't going to play it. I want the ambiance of it. And so I took a piece of the swag and worked all of this and wired it all together along with this French horn. This is an English hunt type feeling room. So the French horn ties in nicely with the violin. The pheasant feathers tie in. Again, I brought the poinsettias down, and I rolled up music and tied that in. Now this whole arrangement can be picked up and moved as one piece. So if you store it carefully in a nice box, next Christmas, pull it out of the box and set it up. That whole area would take you 2 minutes. Now you'll see the elk up there. Again, if you're hunting, what are you hunting? And so the touch of elk is nice. And also there's a vintage Santa. And what I love about the vintage Santa is that his coat ties in nicely with the coat of the rider up above, the hunt man. Now, you know, sometimes you have great parties in December, and sometimes you just have the ability or the time to spend a few minutes with somebody you love very much. It's important to set the scene for each. And you'll see here with a fireplace, with candlelight, and a little tea cart that was made from a table, you could share a pot of tea, a few muffins, and just spend a little bit of time. It's important to have those places that you're going to be fed during this season where you can relax and get back some of what you're giving. The Christmas tree is really important for establishing Christmas. In fact, I think it's so important that I usually end up with, maybe anywhere from 50 to 60 trees right in there. Of course, they're not all the big, giant, fresh ones. We have a small home. This happens to be one of the 2 fresh trees I bring in my home. It really establishes a great atmosphere. But you know what's fun? When you have so many trees, you can get a variety of themes to them. You'll see the little tree on the hunt table behind the sofa. Now this is a serving piece. It's like a side table, and they're often referred to as a hunt table because when they would come in from the hunt, they would put food out. Great place to serve dessert or even hors d'oeuvres or anything like that. And this particular tree is pretty easy to move, so I could put the food out there as well. Now this particular tree, the little tree, at one of my workshops one time, the women challenged me to make, I had a pile of the ugliest things you could ever imagine. And they challenged me. They said, I can't do it. And I said, you're going to want this tree when I finish with it. Well, it ended up I wanted it, so I ended up getting it. And I really like it. It's just a Mod Podge of a bunch of stuff that was actually awful looking. And I sprayed it all gold and played with it a little bit and put it together. And it ties together nicely for a tree. Now on the main tree, there's a completely different look. This tree really backs up the theme in this room, which is the hunt, the English hunt. My husband and son both are hunters, and so it's kind of fun to have the elk on the tree. And it seems like it would be really out of place, but it isn't in an English hunt. I have French horns and on the tree as well, and poinsettias all over the tree, which again gives that festive, great look. The red cords, which could tie in, you know, it has that rope type theme. And then again, look at all the music rolled up. Do you know how inexpensive it is to find a secondhand music book and just roll up the pages? I spritzed the end with gold and tied them with ribbons. Now look at those fabulous ornaments. They are huge. Isn't it true that normally on those kind of ornaments that big, it would pull the branches down, and yet they're lightweight? On the workshop Christmas video, I'm going to be demonstrating how to make those, and you can I give you a little hint? Start collecting Grandpa's ties. They're really a lot of fun to make. Anyway, it ties together beautifully, but when I look at this tree, I think the important thing in Christmas are those Christmas memories. And there's one every time I look at this tree that just really hits me. And that is to remember to share Christmas sometimes with people who have never had it before, not in the way I love it. There's a little ornament on this tree, and that's always very, very special for me to hang. I've had it for probably a good 16, 17 years. I was visiting with a woman one time, and she was telling me how much she just hated Christmas. It makes a mess in her house, and she just doesn't really like it, and her family just better get used to it. And I said that I love Christmas, and that, you know, the homemade things are really important to me. Well, her son, who was he's kind of a stinker at the time, but he came out to me just as I was leaving and held out his hand, and he had taken this toy, put glue on it, and put glitter on it, and he said, "This is an ornament for you." And I knew that, you know, sometimes other people need to be approached on Christmas. You need to share what you have so abundantly. If you bought this video, my guess would be is you love Christmas too, and there's a whole bunch of people around who would love to be able to share that with you. One of the comments that's most often made is people say, you know, I have a real hard time getting that all over consistent look throughout my home. I think one of the important things to remember is you always have to have some kind of identifying either color or item that will tie through your room. Here you see poinsettias represented throughout the room. Not only are they on the tree, but you'll see them in the two arrangements, one at the end of the cabinet. By the way, that cabinet does hold our television, and then one in the swag up above. Now, doesn't it look like how in the world do you have time, Debbie, to make all these Christmas arrangements? In reality, those are just regular arrangements that I have cut apart a bush of poinsettias and very carefully wiggled a few of those poinsettias into these arrangements. They look like Christmas arrangements, but they're my regular arrangements I have there all the time. I have red in here so I can consistently use red, but you never want to mix maybe a mauve and a red, or even a plum burgundy and a red. So be careful on your colors. Now again, oh look it, we found another tree. And on that tree, again tying into the English hunt, I have bird's nests with little eggs in it. I have raffia that feels kind of outdoorsy. There's pears in there, kind of like, instead of partridge in a pear tree, this one's really more pheasants in a pear tree. I found some great little pheasants at a craft store, and I use those. The little birds are flying throughout the tree. It's, I didn't use tons of lights on this. I didn't want something that was going to take away from the larger tree in the room, just enhance that other tree. So this tree is, and by the way, do you notice the narrowness of this tree? That's a pencil tree. And you'll see one in my bedroom that is just stunning. You can do all kinds of things with these. I love that tree. You'll see Santa's mixed in on the bookshelf. And you know, one of the things I do is I have a lot of things in my home. And when you're putting out so many items so that it doesn't feel like you're having to make tunnels through your room, sometimes you have to remove some of those items that you normally have out to make room for Christmas. What I do is I store the items that I've taken down to put Christmas up. I store those in the boxes, and my husband puts those back in the attic until it's time to take those down to put the Christmas out. So that's a good way to store those items to keep them nice and safe. So here are all the Santas, and then you'll notice there's a little tree right next to the chair. That tree backs up that same feeling. It really is a miniature replica of the large tree that's in the room. Now on my coffee table, I have a tendency not to put a lot of things in case I want to entertain there, so it's easy to clear off and set up dessert or whatever it is you want to set up. Even if it is something that's easy to move, being on the coffee table, it's important that it's interesting to look at. Well, this particular one right here, I really do enjoy looking at. It's a little Santa creating his toys. You can see him on his little work table. And the little tree that I made right behind him is, not only does it have the antique glass beads on it, but it has tons of little wooden toys all over it. To me, it tells a story. It tells a story of a Santa who has sat there, worked on these toys, and put them on the tree getting ready for Christmas. It's interesting, and it's amazing how many people will take the time to really look at all the things on there. You know, I had to move this wreath onto a chair so I could be able to share it with you. I do hang it on a wall that you're not able to see in this particular video. And I wanted to share, my mom makes these, and they're little tiny packages that she makes the packages, she wraps each one individually, and she makes these bows. She spends hundreds and hundreds of hours doing this. What's great is not only do I have one, but all my siblings have them as well. In fact, a lot of the nieces and nephews. So that when I go from home to home at Christmas, it's wonderful to be able to see my mom's work. I've used red, green, the English hunt theme to establish a mood in this room. The fireplace has helped add to that room. This happens to be a see-through fireplace. Let's go see what's on the other side. Even though this is the same fireplace, on this side it has a much different feel. There's marble instead of slate. Instead of stained dark oak, it is painted. And so because of the different mood in here, it's going to need completely different decorations. Where in the other room I used red poinsettias. In this room I have cream colored, a rich ivory color, along with rose colored that are tipped with quite a bit of gold. And in here it has a little bit, well, I don't know if you'd call it elegant, but maybe a little bit more feminine. I've also tied in a gold ribbon through it. Again, this is the very inexpensive garland that has been doubled. Now you'll notice what adds a real great look to this particular swag are the little branches. I sprayed them with Gold Design Master, and they have a touch of wildness. Instead of just looking like a rope of poinsettias and ribbon, it has a nice look. What also helps this particular swag in framing this fireplace beautifully is that instead of stopping too short, the garland goes all the way to the floor. It's a different look, and sometimes those little touches really do make such a big difference. You know, as you come up, you'll see on the mantle some of the things I've chosen to do. Now this particular piece on the horn, it's really fun. That was originally an ugly plastic wreath. And what I did is I have a sugar looking thing that I do to it, and you'll see that if you purchase the workshop, Christmas workshop, on how to do that and how to do it even with fruit. And I cut the wreath in half, and it's just stunning. It's just really nice. And you'll see my carolers up there. Those were a nice gift, and the candles. But on up, you'll see something else. Notice how the look from down below ties up beautifully with the swag up above. That swag again has the same kind of poinsettias. It has the same gold ribbon, and I took a candle ring that I had played with a little bit, and then with paints and different things, and cut it up, and some wild sticks, and it has a great look. Again, remember, you have to do this one time. As long as you carefully put it away, you can use it year after year after year, and it takes just a few minutes to set up. It has an all-over great look that's creating a mood in this room. As satisfied as I am with this look, if I were to choose a different look for each part of the room, it would end up having a patch quilt type look. And you'll notice by looking at the front window, that I have managed to, even though it has a complete scene, I've tied it in with that same feeling that the fireplace had. Just as I define the space on the fireplace, I also define the space in this window by using garland and a little bit of light and giving a soft arch to it. Now right underneath you'll see a wreath hanging. Sure, it's in a window, but it still has a great look. Now that wreath kind of backs up that same feeling that the fireplace had. There's the poinsettia, there's the sticks painted gold woven through. Even the little figures on it have that same soft feeling of the carolers, and then the gold ribbon that flows down. It all backs up with that mood. Right underneath you'll see a Santa. You know, I don't remember if it was last year or the year before, something very special happened. You know, my son always had tons of, just so many friends come over and spend the night, eat frequently. They were here a lot. There were about 9 of the guys that spent a lot of time here. And he graduated several years ago, and I hadn't seen quite a few of them for a while. This young man at Christmas time stopped by and had this Santa for me. And he said he was shopping, and just when he saw it, he had to get it for me. You know, there's something very special about it. You know, when people remember you fondly, it's always a nice gift, even if they don't come bearing a Santa. And you'll also know that there's a little swag on the table right underneath the Santa, right beside him. And again, there's that same cream-colored poinsettia. It's pulling, by having it there, it's pulling that fireplace around the room. You'll also notice that same look on the coffee table. I wanted something fairly simple and yet elegant on this table. And so I took one of those glass, I don't know, it's not a globe, but whatever it is, and I tied a ribbon around it and tied a bow in the front with a few interesting objects and some cording on it. There's a nice vanilla candle inside, but what makes this look so elegant is look at the base on this. It has just a wonderful rich look. It looks like a very nice piece. What this really is, it's one of those old 1960 lamps with a big gold ball globe on it. I took it apart and I used the base as the base for this. Now again, you'll see those poinsettias are tied in, pulling it around the room, and I used it with some fresh greens on an antique, very vintage lace piece. That vintage lace piece adds a nice base, since it is a glass top table. It gives it a real interesting shape and design. You know, this corner cabinet is a nice piece in a room. This room's small, and so it needs a busy space just to provide some interest. And of course, if you're going to have a busy space, you're going to need a tree, you're going to need a Santa at Christmas time. This particular Santa's nice because he ties in again with the creamy white colors. And the little lights, the little carriage lights on each side of him really draw attention during the night. Again, as you're working around the room, you'll see that there's a candle with that same gold bow. So you're going to be pulling that flavor around, that feeling around. And look what we find, not only a nice cream-colored Santa, but we found another Christmas tree. Now this Christmas tree really ties in this fireplace because not only does it have that same kind of poinsettia on it, but the fabric that's on it ties in that same feeling as that gold ribbon working through the garland. All the ornaments are not on this tree. Normally I have about 500 ornaments and I really enjoy them. Now you'll see the little, oh, I don't know what you'd call them, cupids? No, little angels on the tree. Of course they're angels on the tree. And there's some, they're really quite large. There's 3 nice size. I often find people having a tree this size and lots of little tiny things. Sometimes if you want a different look, putting some nice big items on there will give you a whole different look. You'll see too that these angels will tie in to that same feeling when you're looking at the dining room of my very, very favorite Christmas decoration. The little swag on the grandfather clock is one of those decorations that literally just takes me a few seconds. It's been made for years, and all I have to do is just slip it into place. Those are nice to have on hand. It's amazing how fast your house can be decorated. Now over on the mirror, you'll see a garland that I just really enjoy this piece. I guess I like the contrast of the arched mirror and then the shape of the garland as it sweeps down on each side. Because it's in the mirror, it makes it look twice as full and twice as interesting. Look at this great little tree. It starts off from an angel on top, down to little candlesticks coming down, lights, interesting gold ribbon, down to a fantastic base. Now this base looks old and vintage, and boy, where did you find that? Actually, I found it at the top of the ugly lamp that I got the base off of that I used on the coffee table. It has a great lift to it adds a great lift to the piece. It really does make this tree look special. Even on top of the china cabinet in the dining room, it's important to establish the same mood that you've had in the living room. For instance, you'll notice these wonderful little cherubs, little angels, with a bit of gold, I don't know what you'd call that, stuff. That's gold stuff up there. Anyway, these angels are really sweet, and you know it's real important when you establish something. Look at their faces. Make sure that they're kind. Now, I always look at the faces whenever I buy anything, and I like this. But of course, look up here too. There's two trees. You know, you'd think I'd run out of places to put them, but you know, it's important to think of all areas. And for instance, somebody tall walks in. I'm short. Somebody tall walks in, they want to look at something interesting too, so there's something up there for them. I also try to have it to where no matter where you look in my house, there's something interesting to look at. Now, on the top of this china hutch, you'll also see another little swag with a gold bow and one of the poinsettias that tie in with the rest of the room. Again, that's very easy to put on. Once you make it, it's made. Similar to what's on the chandelier. By now you probably are able to quite easily look at this and say, okay, there's her poinsettias, there's her gold ribbon, even her sticks, and look it, there are those cherubs. The nice thing is, again, they're on the garland, and so it's very easy just to wrap it around. Once it's done, it's done. But can you see how nicely this just frames that area? It's not getting in your way, you're not having things hanging all over when you're trying to sit down to eat. But it does pull that mood through. And you'll see on the table again, there's some nice things that you can do with this particular table. When you're setting a table for conversation of any kind, it's important to remember that you need to talk over your centerpiece. This particular one is quite easy to do because it's low enough to speak over, and yet it's really interesting. Some things look great at a distance, but this one really looks nice close up. You can light the candle or not. You could put whatever. In fact, imagine having some kind of great little get-together. You could wrap presents for your friends and stick them in the sleigh, as long as they were small. And it just has a great look. And underneath it, you want to tie in the season by, instead of just having it come abruptly to your tabletop, I've used some greens to stick here and there so that it again feels that winter wonderland feeling. Now, I did not put my linen napkins in their napkin rings. And by having a simpler way of displaying them, your napkin ring is then free. See these little trees? I just slipped it into the napkin ring. And so the base of it looks charming and kind of different. Now, again, this table is very informal. I love seeing the greens on the table. You could make it more formal by what you put around it. You could put some small poinsettias around it. You know, those short potted miniature ones have been coming out in the last few years, and they look great. Behind the table is a wreath that is lit again with those wonderful little candles. It's, I think, important to bring in those little lights around the room, this room, because there are so many in the living room, and these rooms are really open to each other. I have a vintage doll curled up in the wreath, and she's just interesting enough to provide something to look at when you're sitting on the table. Of course, there's another tree hanging from a old-fashioned piece of metalwork right next to it. And again, that's something interesting to look at. We've come full circle. We're back at the fireplace now. Right next to the fireplace is one of my favorite serving pieces, and that's a side table or buffet. I have on it the coffee and tea service that I enjoy on little warming pots. Keeps it nice and piping hot no matter who you're serving it to. Of course, there's a few more trees. And then right up above, you'll see something that's very, very special to me. Do you see those 4 little angel heads? Those are very old from Germany. They're hand painted. There's something so wistful about them that when I look at them, I think, oh, they just melt me. Again, there's some more of that gold interesting stuff. But that's on top of a mirror, and I really find it beneficial to have mirrors over buffets. I think the candlelight can reflect off of it. It makes the space larger. I really enjoy having a mirror over something like this. It enlarges the room. Besides that, by looking in this mirror, you can see if there's anything cooking in the kitchen. Well, as you can see, there's nothing cooking here right now. But I do have the kitchen decorated. You know, one of the things I never want to do is miss one moment of Christmas. So if I'm in here cooking, which I do a lot at Christmas, I'm still going to be in the mood for Christmas and holidays. One of the things that helps add to that mood is the large Christmas tree right over the kitchen sink. You know how much time I spend at that kitchen sink at Christmas time? And this one has a lot of interesting things to look at. The first thing is that very old Santa. He gives a nice focus to this tree. You know, if you have some toys that have been passed down in your family, you could, or even dolls, a doll collection, anything like that, what a great thing to decorate a Christmas tree with. In addition to that, I have taken interesting old-fashioned necklaces and used pieces of that. And I've also used the crystal prism type thing that goes so, you find them on old lamps. You find them on some newer lamps that are not quite so sharp looking sometimes. So I just buy them and take off those prisms, and they look beautiful on Christmas things. Up above it, again, you'll see that poinsettia that I like to tie in this whole area with the gold ribbon. Takes a moment just to tie it on because it's already made. A nice way to add a bit of Christmas to the plate shelf is to put these little trees up there. They're not decorated. There's a little bit of snow on them, a little bit of glitter to make them interesting, but they have a real nice feeling all the way around the plate rack. On top of the pot rack, I do have a swag. And again, that's a very easy piece to install. Again, I'm tying in the gold and the cream. You know, instead of being boring, you might think, oh, I'm getting so tired of seeing those because I'm pointing out each one. But instead of being boring, there's a consistency that flows through. You could add little bits and pieces to make a swag, you know, like for instance, tie on some cinnamon sticks from the kitchen or do different things to it. But it's nice to have some basics. Okay, down below, I have just a few little greens of, you know, sometimes you have to clear off the back of your tree. Oh, I guess I told my secret. I have a small living room, so sometimes I will take the hedge clippers and I cut off, a good 2/3 of one side of it so I can push it up close to the wall. That gives me more space in my living room. It also gives me lots of greens, and I like just tucking them here and there. It smells like Christmas and it looks like Christmas. I also stuck a few in the fruit. Actually, that's a scale, but I use that as my fruit bowl. Stuck a few of the greens in there as well. Again, that looks like Christmas. I love this little Santa. Not only does he tie in nicely with the kitchen theme, but look at, he's serving. One of my favorite things about Christmas is being able to have something when people stop by. giving them a rest and giving them something special. You know, we all like to be spoiled. And so if I can do that for my friends and family a little bit at Christmas time, I enjoy the season a lot more. One thing's for sure, with as much as what's going on in the rest of the home, by nighttime I am ready to come in and relax in my bedroom. You know, you put out all day long, and it's nice to have a place to go where you just are quiet and can receive back. Because of that, I've done this room in a real quiet, tight feeling. I've again used the golds, I've used the lights, the candlelight, all those different things, but they're softer in here. Although this one pencil tree has close to 200 ornaments on it. You know, one of the things that I'm going to show you at the end of this video is how to tell the difference between a hand-blown ornament and one that isn't. You can probably find still quite a few really nice second-hand hand-blown ornaments, and it's nice to be able to collect those. I'm also going to be showing you how to do a swag. This tree is much faster to do because I have a swag that winds around it with little lights and different things on it, so it makes it easy to decorate. Also notice those wonderful little doves on there. They have such sweet faces. You know, this tree reminds me a lot of the little one that's also right next to my bed. It looks really special at night looking through the shears of the canopy to either one of these trees. This little one over here has a lot of the same feeling as the other tree. Again, it's using little crystal or little prism looking vintage pieces, and then the base is again one of those old lamps. It makes it look very vintage. Sometimes there's a lot of preparation in Christmas decorating. Sometimes it's something very simplistic. This is just a little piece that I added 2 poinsettias to, and yet it makes the whole thing feel more festive. I like the restful feel of it, and yet, like I said, there's still a touch of Christmas there. A few poinsettias with a gold ribbon also changes the arrangement on top of the armoire and brings it a little bit more into focus for Christmas too. Just one little more subtle touch throughout, as if I do a lot of subtle touches, but one little touch is on top of my desk. I have an interesting little Christmas tree. It's small. The base of it, I think, is just wonderful. It's marble and old metal. It came from a lamp that the top part was destroyed, but the bottom part was savable to use as a base for this particular little tree. You know, I do enjoy sharing my home at Christmas, and I really do hope that you've enjoyed visiting with me during this time. When you're shopping for Christmas ornaments, whether secondhand or new, it's important to know what you're looking for. Sometimes this day and age you can get beautiful ornaments, but they're plastic, and so you may not want to purchase that. You may also find glass ornaments that are nice, but they're not that hand-blown feel. Now, when people walk in and they see a tree full of ornaments, they're not going to necessarily know by looking at them if they're hand-blown or not. But you know, if you're out buying secondhand ornaments and you have the choice for the same price between hand-blown nice ornaments or just glass ornaments that aren't worth as much, let me show you how you could pick the best. When you're choosing a hand-blown ornament, this one is not. This is just a glass ornament, and it is very smooth across the bottom. Opposite from where your hanger would be, it is very smooth across the bottom. Both of these are very smooth. Now, looking at these two ornaments, which one would you be more inclined to choose? This one is pretty messed up, isn't it? It's scratched and whatever. But on the bottom, you can feel that very smooth look, and I'm not sure if you can see it or not, but you can actually see those little divots left of when they're blowing the glass. And so when you feel that, you know that's a hand-blown ornament. I would choose this one every time. But what do you do about those scratches? I'll show you that in just a minute. Now this one, I feel the bottom and it's smooth. However, I want you to look at something else. There's all these wonderful little bubbles in here, which denotes the hand blowing. And also, when you pivot it, you can see, like right here, a little bit of an unevenness. When they blew this, for some reason this doesn't have that, but when they blew it, they're not going to get it the same as when they put it into a mold. So this one is also hand blown, even though it doesn't have that. So those are some things you look for, the little divots at the bottom and the little bubbles in the glass. Those are really nice ornaments. Let me show you a trick. If somebody is giving you ornaments or you find them in a garage sale and they're all scratched up, and let's say you see a bag of ornaments for $1, huge bag, but they're scratched, some of them. This is what you can do. Put it in hot soapy water, let it sit for a few minutes. Sometimes it takes a little longer, sometimes not quite so long. Now what happens is that when you have soaked this, the outside comes off very easily, and what you're left with are silver balls. Let me see if it's coming off yet. Yeah, there it's coming off, and you can see just that quickly it's coming off. Leaving it for any length of time, you get all of that off, okay? So, what you're seeing here is you're seeing a silver ball. Now what you're seeing on the inside here, you can see that some of that silver has started to come off. What if you don't want silver balls? What if you want clear glass balls? And this is really pretty because you can do Victorian, you can do all kinds of things out of these once they're clear. What you then do is that's the silver on the inside. You can't get that off of soap and water. I put them in an egg carton, and with a little funnel, I fill them up full of pure bleach, just a chlorine bleach. Leave it sit for about 15 minutes. I dump about half of it off, put my finger over the end, and I shake it and shake it. It'll turn darker and darker and darker, and then it begins to get really light, and then it's clear. And you can pour it out and you have a clear glass ball that's hand blown. Once you have all the silver off of the inside, you then have a glass globe. And that in itself, if you hang this on the tree, it's really not going to show up very well. You basically, in my opinion, have a blank canvas that you can do anything you want with, and there's all kinds of creative things people do with them. This is one of my favorite ideas. Now, whether or not you have grandma's old tablecloth that has really been destroyed past the point of using because you don't want to do this to something very special, or if you have something that you found even at a garage sale that's destroyed, you can take a piece of that lace. You can even use maybe the bodice of an old dress of yours that's lace, or almost anything. Now, you start off with a square piece or a rectangle piece, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut divots out of this. Think of a star shape. And try not to make it even. Not that it's that easy to make even anyway, but try not to. It actually looks better if it's irregular shaped. And also, you'll see when I hold this up, I chose a piece that it's not the same lace all the way around. And you're going to be surprised. That actually I think I like even better than pieces that all look the same. Okay, now I'm going to hold this up against here so you can see the shape. Can you see that shape and see the unusual lace design? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that and put a little hole right in the middle. Be careful, I'm really kind of just making a slice. It's so easy if you try to cut a circle to cut it much too big for the area. You want it to be very tight. You can always cut more, but you sure can't put it back together very easily. Okay, I'm going to cut just a bit more. And I'm going to slide it down over the hanger area like this. Okay? Again, it doesn't look like much yet, but you may really enjoy this when it's done. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of the tips and I'm going to pull it tight out like this. And I'm using a low temp glue gun. I remember the days before the low temps came out. Now these are still hot. They're not going to be comfortable to your skin. But they sure aren't as bad as the others. The others used to blister my skin. You could see me at Christmas time coming in and wanting to shake people's hands like that. It really hurt. Okay, now what I am doing is I'm running a bead of glue down between the glass globe and the lace. So I'm actually hooking, covering all the raw edges of the lace to the glass globe. and making it stay that way. Now don't be concerned if it's a little globby. There are times I actually go back because I haven't made it globby enough. You're going to find that you're going to enjoy those areas. And I'm not doing the tips yet because that gives me something to hold on to. And I'll go back and do the tips in just a moment. Here's one little area. So I'll do that one. And because it's such a small little area, I'm going to even put a little bit more dribble of the glue down. That glue you're not trying to hide. You're going to actually use that in a nice way in just a moment here. Bring it on down. Boy, this glue gun's squeaking like it's just done one too many crafts this day. Okay, I'm going to work it all the way around. You know what's wonderful about this? Let's say you do have a lace piece left over from something that was really nice to you at one point. Or let's say you're a grandmother who has some antique laces and the pieces are not really good. Maybe doilies that have been ripped or destroyed in some way. If you can find enough lace off of it to do this, think of what nice gifts this could give. You could give maybe a set of 12 as a gift, or even just one per person who comes to your house on Christmas Day. You still haven't decided yet if you want to do this yet, have you? Okay, I'm almost all the way around. When it goes all the way around, and by the way, once you go all the way around, make sure you go back and get those tips that you didn't get before. You don't need to do the next step while the glue is hot. In fact, just the opposite. You want the glue to be cooled off. So I will set this one down. I'll get a cool one that is cooled down, and you'll notice that when it has cooled down, you see that kind of a milky look to it. Now, at this point, let's say you do a whole bunch of them and you get them to this point, you can set it aside and you can wait a week to do the next step if you want. This isn't something that needs to be done immediately. However, I like immediate gratification, so I usually do. This is a composition leaf that I'm going to be using next. It's called gold leaf. However, it isn't the one that is like $30-some a sheet. This one has, let me see how many is it, 25 sheets like this for under $9. And so it really goes quite a ways. Now this you can blow like that a hole through this. It's very, very fine. Now this is what you want to do. Can you see where your glue is? Everywhere that there's glue, you're going to want to put your gold leaf on. And just tap it down into place. Now look at this. You can rip off the areas where there isn't gold and glue, and put it where there is glue. So don't waste any big pieces of it. Okay, once you've got it all tapped down, and pick it up and move it to another place. This makes a great gift to give someone. It's great for teachers, it's great for people at work, or for, like I said before, people who are coming to dinner. Now see these big pieces? I will end up saving those big pieces to use again. Now once you get it all tapped down into place, this is only going to stick where there's glue. Okay? As soon as you get it all tapped down into place, come back. Now this is a blush brush. You can use any soft brush like this, and you're just getting off the excess. Every once in a while when you do this, sometimes you'll find like a little string of glue that is in the wrong place, you know, that kind of went out the side or something. You can just take your nail and take off your excess there. Now look at this. See, this will not permanently stay on that glass, even though it looked like it was going to. The only place it's going to be permanent is right where there's glue. Okay, once you get this done, now this will eventually tarnish if you leave it unprotected. And I kind of like that look. I think it has a really nice vintage look when you do that. But if you like the shiny look that almost looks brass, it's so shiny. Look at that, isn't that beautiful? Then what you can do is you can take a clear fingernail polish, and I love to do that for small places that I want to shine or keep shiny or protected, because I hate cleaning varnish brushes. And when you use a clear fingernail polish, you can use that little tiny brush to dab on everywhere that is gold, and you don't have to clean a brush. Now once you get it like this, you can do all kinds of fun things. I have glued antique buttons, brass buttons up around here. But what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to take a piece of lace, and I'm going to double it just because I like that look. This gold leaf just gets everywhere. But it vacuums up pretty easily. And I'm going to tie a bow. Okay, once the bow has been put on, you could add a variety, like I said, of all different kinds of things. But I'm going to be making a garland for this particular tree, and so what I'm going to choose to put on it right now, I'm going to choose to put berries. I really love berries. Now I'm going to, these kind of got knocked off a little bit, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put, of course you run out of glue right at the most opportune times. I'm going to put a dab of glue right here, and I'm going to put a leaf in there, and I'm going to take just some of these berries and curl them around and stick those in as well. Now look at that. Isn't that a wonderful ball? I think to wrap this up, or to have one at each place setting, or to give a set of them, what a nice gift, even if you're giving a gift to yourself. When you have a tree, you have a variety of ways that you can add light. One of the traditional ways is to wind your lights on all the branches and fill up the tree full of those kind of lights. Another way you can do it is you can put your lights on a garland and wind the garland around. That's a real quick way of making your tree look pretty gorgeous. And then of course the third way, which I do on a lot of my trees, is I put the lights on the tree, and then I also put the lights on the garland. It's a great look, and I'm going to show you in a minute how to do the garland. This is a narrow little tree, and I love these throughout my home. And this particular one is really nice. Look at this. You can fold it up like this. All the branches just fold up. And so what I would do, for instance, on my tall pencil trees you saw earlier, I put little lights all over the tree, and I leave those on year to year, and I just fold them all up and roll them in a sheet and put them up in the attic that way. So when you see a tree like this, sometimes you need to realize you need to open them up a little bit and play with them, and they look a lot better. Put your lights on it, and then let me show you how to do a garland. Okay, garlands come, boy, there's just all different kinds of garlands you can purchase. Some of them are so expensive. I've seen them, some as expensive as $45. This is a very, very cheap one. Now this one I'm going to fill it full enough where you don't really need it. You don't need a lot of greenery. Look at what we're putting it on. We're putting it on this tree. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up, and I am going to decorate this to wind down the tree. Now there are places around my home. Remember I told you over the fireplaces that was very inexpensive garland? And what I did, see how narrow this is? I put two of them together like this, and periodically just twisted a couple of these branches together. Now each time you twist it, it actually makes it look fuller, so you can just go on down the whole piece twisting, and you have a nice thick piece of garland. This is much, much cheaper than buying fat garland. To buy twice as much of the thin is much cheaper. Okay, I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to go ahead and put some lights on it and prepare and show you the next step. Okay, I have the lights on the garland. When you're putting the lights, I just ran these down. I doubled the lights and ran them down. The nice thing about this garland is that each one of these, that's a wire inside. So you can bend them any way you want. So I will lay the wire down and just twist it lightly over. And that's all you have to do to hold it in place. Okay, once you have that done, think of starting at the top of your tree and winding down. You're going to want some kind of a top for it. Artificial trees look pretty good up there, but a lot of real trees, if you're going to do this on your real tree, will often have pretty skinny tops. So I always like to start off with a bow. And I'm going to leave a little bit of a tail on here. Now watch how I do my bows. Many years ago I learned how to do this watching a man do it. He was charging $5 a bow, and that was 20-some years ago. I'm going to leave a tail, give a twist, and then I'm going to make a loop, twist again, do a bunny ear on one side. It'd help if I held that out of the way. Give it a twist. You give it a twist to not only give height to the bow, but also a lot of ribbon has a right side and a wrong side, so you're always bringing the right side up then. Give it another twist, and I'm going to bring it out this way, and bring it out this way. Okay, and then leave your end. Now, if you wanted a bigger bow, just start adding loops in back. You see how that does? One on each side, and then some out here, filling out whatever size you want it to be. I want a fairly small one because this is a pretty small tree. Now I'm going to look here for there it is, the wire. And it helps if you have this cut ahead of time, which I never do. Now you're going to take your wire and you're going to put it through that first center loop, down through your fingers. Don't cut it too short because it's really nice to have enough of this wire left to be able to wind it up on the top. Okay, so I'm going to twist it. Take the ends down, fold them in half, and then cut up towards the bow, and you will get perfect dovetails every time. Okay, now that one I'm going to put up here at the top. And see, when I wrap this around the tree, that will be at the very tip top as I wind it down. Now, I'm going to make some bows as I go along, but I need to decide what I want to put on this. Now, let's say I choose something like this. This is beautiful. It has such a dramatic look to it. So I'm going to look at this, maybe even tie in a couple of these throughout it. Look at the beauty of that. Now, look at these berries. These are wonderful. One of the things you don't want to do when you make a garland like this is you don't necessarily want everything really tight. So don't wrap this around really tight. Open it up so that some of these will have a lacy, airy look and a fuller look. So as you put this on, it's going to be a little bit more opened. Down here at the end where the stem is, don't cut that off. You paid for it, use it. So I'm going to wrap that around as well. And take the end and really corkscrew it. There you go. Now look at that. That coming out of the greenery is going to add some interest too. So instead of being garbage, you're going to be able to use it. I'm going to play with a little bit of this and I'll be done with that in just a moment. Okay, I've set the tree down so you can see it a little bit. And I began to put the garland, wrapping the garland on. Now remember, this is just a plain tree that has had the garland wrapped on. I haven't finished the garland, but one of the things I want to do, this is Brilliant Gold Design Master. This is created for fresh, dried, or silk flowers, but it works great on all kinds of things. I want to distinguish where this is, so I'm going to just touch just the garland with bits of this gold, just to kind of lighten that, so you can see that that's a little bit different than the tree. And then I'm going to come back. I have the poinsettias here, and I'm going to, remember this one that I had just corkscrewed the end? Instead of just trying to run those through like this, it could end up being pretty spendy for you. So go ahead and cut it in half. You don't want to cut it in too small of pieces because then you're going to maybe not have the dramatic effect of what it is. Well, that's too hard to poke in that way. Okay, so I'm going to take this piece right here and I'm going to stick it down inside, and you'll notice I'm not using a glue gun. That way if I decide I want to take it off in a year or two, I can. And I am using the garland little branches to wiggle and hold it in place. So see how that just looks, oh, that just looks great there, doesn't it? Now I've got some there, and I can choose to put some down over maybe here if I want. Again, using some of this garland that I've wrapped around the tree. See, I'm just twisting it on. Now remember I talked about opening it up a little bit so that this is not going to be just flat against the tree. And this, well, I just lost a leaf. This is a good time for glue gun. So I'm going to use my glue gun to add a dab of glue, and I'm going to stick that right about there. And it's going to move where it wants. But you can see again the look of it. Now I'm going to take, and I will do that throughout the whole garland, is periodically putting them around. If you have 3 of these, then just space them approximately. Not just perfect, but approximately. Now I have about, maybe about 4 feet left of this ribbon. So what I'm going to do, instead of just putting 1 or 2 bows there, I'm going to cut it into 4ths. And use this to look like it's been woven down throughout the whole garland, but it hasn't, of course. And I'll show you how you do that. You take a piece like this, wiggle it in where you want to, and just make sure you stick the ends down somewhere where you could, again, tie them with that little piece of your garland. See, there's some interesting ones there. Let's add some right down here. And you'll see I've got the ends tucked on the inside. You don't want to see that end because remember, we want it to look like we've used the whole garland to weave this in and out of. And make sure when you tie it, you're tying it not onto the tree, but onto the garland. And the reason for that is so that when you unwind the garland off the tree, you want to be able to lift that off with it. Anyway, like I said, you'll just periodically put those down around. Okay. You could add some here if you wanted, wherever it is that you wanted. And I'm not going to take the time to tie it on, but you get the idea right there. Okay, now, whenever you can, find things that are free. And just down the street, we had, I happened to notice Crunch Crunch as I drove by, and there were a bunch of nice pine cones. And you can either wire them on or glue them on. The choice is yours. It actually works better to wire them on, or remember, you can use the little garland again. And you want to look at it on all views. You know, when you're doing a tree, always look at it from several views. And by the way, you don't even have to wire it too far. Just stick those little ends in and it works nicely. Pine cone seems to add a real fullness at a very reasonable price. Remember, free? Okay, as you put these all around, you can see how it's beginning to fill out. I also have a bunch of really small ones. You know, just some really tiny ones. So if I wanted to stick those in and around, that gives a little bit more texture and looks interesting as well. Now, as you can see, it's really easy to make this garland. It's very easy then to unwire it up here and unwrap it with all the lights on it and store it in a maybe a black plastic garbage can. By the way, this was 9 feet of garland that I've wrapped around once, twice, and it only made it halfway around a 3rd time. See where it stopped right here? It takes more garland than what you think it does to wrap around a tree even this size. So it depends on how much or how close you want it together, how much garland you want on your tree, but it does take a little more than what you realize. Once your garland is all done, that's done until you want a different look. Next year you get your tree, wire it up on top, loosely wrap it around, plug it in at the bottom. You can put whatever ornaments you want along here, or you can leave it plain. Either way, it's a great look. This is a wreath, and you know, I see these things, they're so expensive when you purchase them fixed up already. This I found at a craft store. I put the lights in. You just want to make sure that you tuck all those little wires down inside and use again your little branches to tie them into place. Now once that's in place, I like to take some brilliant gold because I'm going to have some gold in here and I want some identification around. I don't want it to be solid green with things just stuck on top. Now your look that may be great with your look, but this particular one I think I want to add some of this. So again, I'm taking the Design Master, make sure it's shaking. You shake it up and you see how that just kind of gives a nice frost to this, and it softens those lights even a little bit. Now, can you see the difference? It just has a nice rich look to it. Okay, now I've already made the bow. Since you know how to make one already, you know, I thought before people who really have a hard time making bows, they may wear their tape out of that place. Okay, and I have it again on a wire. I'm going to stick that down and stick the wire through all the way to the back. Pull it through so that it nestles that in a little bit and wrap it around and back. Okay. Once I've done that, I've left the ends a little bit long, and I'll take care of that in a while. I might even have it come straight down like this. You know, I'm going to, I think, prop this a little bit there. Can you see that better? Now, I've taken some of those same poinsettias. Now remember, if you're going to tie a look around in your room, it's really nice to use a lot of the same pieces. And I am going to, of course, need that Gold Design Master, so let me grab something else to stick there. There we go. And I'm going to just touch those leaves a little bit so that if they show, they're going to be interesting. Just to give it a little bit more of a holiday flair. By the way, you can do this same thing to fresh greens. And you know, a lot of times I will take fresh greens and wiggle them in and use these to hold them into place either on the wreaths or the garland so that it smells and looks great. Okay, I'm sticking the end in. Let me lift this up here and show you. I'm going to take these two ends and just, that is tightly in place. No glue, it's tightly in place, okay? I'm going to do the same thing on the other end. Do you see how easy it is so already? It's just so easy. Okay, tie it in. Now I'm going to have this piece maybe come up or maybe come down. Oh, I think I'll do it down over here. And again, tie them in. And it's so nice because I have seen wreaths and things that are so glued into place. Sure, they're not going anywhere, but what if you decide that, you know, I don't want to do burgundy this year. I want to do a creamy white or something else. You can take these out, use something else. The burgundy hasn't been ruined, the wreath hasn't been ruined, and you can use them again another time or in another place. And you can always pull these out a little bit later after you get everything in place. Okay, this is the basic. You can see how everything's kind of tied in together. Now, I'm not using the gold poinsettias like I did over here, so let's tie it in with some of these gold pieces. And again, instead of using them solid, as a solid branch, let me get out the heavy-duty cutters. Well, I think that's not going to help anymore either. Boy, what a combination. There's a hard, heavy one and then a soft, small one. Okay, I'm going to add some of these little branches in here. And again, wire them into place because they again add a little bit different look to it. And again, you'll notice I never like everything tight in. I like some things coming off a little bit. I have another one of those. I think I'm going to use this, even though I've had to wrestle with it a bit. You know, looking at it, I think it needs a few wild sticks too. I'll be back in a moment and I'll show you with these things in place what it looks like. Well, with the little gold balls or berry looking things in here, it looks great. And you know, I know so many people who will stop there and it'll look very nice, but I also like that touch of wildness or a little bit more, just always adding a bit more. Look what happens when you just wiggle in a pine cone here, a pine cone there. Now, of course, like I said, I would go back and I would wire these, but you know, sometimes it's nice not to originally wire them into place because this way I can play with them and decide, you know, I don't want one there. So decide kind of where you like them, and then you can come back and you can add the wires to them and wire them in place a little later if you want. Maybe a little one up in here or something. Okay, once it gets to that place, oh, look at that. Doesn't that add a nice texture to it? And again, you can see the little ones would be just adorable. Let me see. Stuck here and there. Those would probably have to be glued. Okay, so if you were putting them on, they'd probably have to be glued. Okay, now I want, here's a good cord. This is a nice gold cord. And what I'm going to do, this is one of my tricks, I loosely tie it in a bow like this, okay? And I wiggle this kind of right behind the bow, and I will pull these around to where you can see them, sometimes behind. Now I've got this gold cord. Now this is the trick. Have you ever noticed how some people put cording on and it looks great, and others, it just kind of hangs there? This is a trick. Let me show you. It's real easy to do. You twist the cord and tuck it in. Now this would probably have to have a dab of glue here and there to get it to remain like this, but just twist the cord until you get it where you want it to be. Now you see how great that looks? Instead of just hanging down like this, now look at this. No matter how much you tried, that doesn't have that same dance along it that this one has. It's not the cord, it's the twist to it. There goes the pine cone. So see, you do need to wire them in place once they get there. Okay, once it's in place, you're going to want to take your glue gun and strategically place a little dab, just a little dab of glue somewhere where it's going to touch to hold that curl in place. Okay, now look, I went out and got some sticks. Aren't these great looking sticks? And I sprayed them gold. Okay, and look at that. Ooh, they have a great look. This one I'm going to kind of, well, looks like I'm going to have to break them off. And maybe tie them in over here. Get them to where you like the look. You know, once you get them in and you decide you don't like that look, you can always take them out. That's what's so great about this, is you can really make something that reflects who you are. You have a taste that's different than everybody else's. Now I'm going to make a little bouquet of these little guys and stick them in. Like I said, if you decide, boy, I just really don't like that, take them out. Yeah. You know, you're always looking for that one perfect stick. You'll notice I had pine cones and all kinds of things. My husband always laughs at me when we go for a walk. He said, you know, most people look up when they walk because I'm always looking down scavenging for a great looking stick or something like that. In fact, last year my husband and I were driving out in the Tullywinkel's, and he way out taking a road somewhere, and he said, pull over quick, or he pulled over real quick, and he said, come here and look. And sure enough, around this pond area, there were elk tracks. And he was so proud that he had found these elk tracks, you know, the man thing. And I looked over and I said, oh, wow, you know, and you could tell by the look on his face, he thought, oh, she's impressed. And I said, look, that has to be the best looking stick I've seen all year. And the wind had blown down a stick that just was gorgeous. He told me, he says, you are such a girl. We have these jokes we play on, or these names we call each other. Okay, you can see, without even adding anything else, how the whole mood of this wreath is one that's free-flowing, that's interesting, that the more you look, the more you see. You can add all kinds of things to it still if you wanted, but it also ties in with the overall feeling of what's going on over here. I personally think this garland needs a few sticks. How about you? One of the things I love to do so much is to take ordinary things and make them a little bit more extraordinary, make them something that you've really always wanted them to be. This is about as ordinary as you can get. Look at this little thing. We found these 2 for $1. They're the little Santa masks. You can see how great it looks bronzed. What's nice is that it's so lightweight, it would be really easy to work it into garland or into a wreath, and it's not going to be so heavy it's going to be difficult to hang. Here's a plaster, I'll put it this way so you can see the good thing. Here's a plaster piece that is just wonderful, and again, it looks bronze. It looks like something vintage that's been passed down, or something that you've been able to afford at one of those great little shops. There's many things that you can do, caught that one, many things that you can do it on. Anything that's paintable, you'll be able to use the bronzing kit on. This particular piece is a plaster piece, and it has never been painted before. So it's so absorbent that you can take any kind of an acrylic flat paint and you can paint it up. That will help seal it so that you don't use as much of the overcoat of the brown bronzing. However, here's an item that I found at Goodwill, and this one would coat very easily because it has been painted before and because it's a metal. So it's going to be really easy to paint. This would look great bronzed. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to shake up the can first, and you want to make sure you do that. Okay, let me move this so you can see a little bit easier. I'm going to set this horse over here, so you got to see it for a moment at least. You know what's nice about that horse is it's thin enough to go on a mantle or near a Christmas tree, all kinds of things. Okay, once you've shaken this up thoroughly, you want to evenly spray. Okay, now make sure, like I said, that you get underneath. Catch it from several different angles. As you catch it from different angles, you're going to find out you've missed spots. This is a great little one. We have a wonderful little shop here locally in Gresham that has a lot of plaster items. Okay, I'm going to turn him so that I can see him at a different angle. You know what's fun about this brown is that it actually, once it dries, looks like chocolate. And so in a lot of your antique stores, they have these great little Easter bunnies at Easter time. And who knows, maybe we'll put out an Easter tape and I'll show you how to make those plaster Easter bunnies. They're real easy. So keep looking for them. This looks like chocolate, and you can make those very same things for a minute fraction. Okay, once you have this thoroughly covered, and we're almost covered here, you're going to let it dry. Now this is not something you have to let dry for a great deal of time, particularly when it's on something like this that has been primed. And I'll have to go down and catch that again, but I'm not going to bother right now. I'll do that a little later. Okay, once it's completely dried, you're going to take, did I catch it everywhere? No, I see a spot or two. Like I said, get it at a different angle. And you know what's nice about this? So let's say you make a big mistake. Let's say you forgot that, and there's all kinds of things that you forgot to do. Your worst scenario is that you're going to have to spray it brown again and start over. You can't really do anything wrong when you're trying to do this. You just have to do it over again. That's just practice. Okay, the brush that comes with your kit fits nicely into your little bottle. You don't want to put too much on. Let me see if it's dry enough here. It's pretty wet. Sometimes you can come back and blow it dry for a few minutes, and that can help the process. Or you can walk away from it for a while. Of course, you know me, I'm always in a big hurry. Okay, now, people have asked me, can you use other colors besides this in the bronzing? You know, they'll say, well, I don't use that color of green. I use a deep forest green in decorating my house or whatever. And you can use any color you want. It's your house. But the truth is that if you want this to look like real bronze with an oxidation, this is the color that the oxidation is. In fact, it's interesting. It is the exact color of oxidation. I've had some bronze pieces, and it's this color. Okay, you want to put on only, just some. You don't want to go too far with this. Now, the important thing when you're putting this on is if you want it to look like your oxidation, which of course is what we want, oxidized metal, then we're going to want to make sure that this is in your nooks and crannies. So don't just brush it on top, you have to work it into the nooks and crannies there. Okay, once I have done this amount, I like to take 2 paper towels or 2 napkins or whatever. I use one to hold and the other to softly wipe it off. Okay, I'm going to finish this and I'll be right back to show you the rest of it. As you can see, I have all the green and all the nooks and crannies, and this is the final touch that you're going to be doing. This is the waxed gold finish, and this is an old world gold. Now, as you can see, this is not like so many of them that have like a hard crayon base. This one has a maybe like a soft butter, consistency of a soft butter. What I'm going to do, when you have nails, you have to do it a little bit differently, but get a little bit on your finger. And what I do is I put a little bit on my center finger and smooth it with my thumb like this so that I'm coating both of those fingers. And I do it with my hand. Anything else and it seems to really overplay it. What you're going to do is you're going to, where you want the green in the nooks and crannies, you're going to want the gold on the outside edges. And contrary to what people believe, it's not the more the merrier. Sometimes just dancing along, and anywhere that you think that he would be lightly touched, that's where he's going to be a little bit shinier. So you'll see I just pick up a little bit more. I'm going to do his mustache here, and when I don't have a lot on here, I'm going to lightly touch his cheeks and then come down and out on his nose a little bit, just lightly. Okay, now I'm going to take the rest of the on my fingers and just lightly run it over his beard. You can see that that's beginning to have that wonderful look. Go across the fur. Any place that you're in a smooth spot, like up here, be really careful not to overdo it. You'll see I'm using my thumb and fingers and things. If you overdo it, the worst scenario again is you're going to have to touch it up and start over again with your brown paint. Down here, you're going to want to notice, you want to put this on anything you really want to notice. For instance, the little toys on the pocket, even a little bit on the pocket. On his bag, I'm going to run across this, and you're going to notice that it'll make shiny the upper parts of the folds. That's what you want. I'm going to run down through the whole thing, lightly touching this and that. Here's a belt buckle. Don't leave it, if it's a little more than what you want, don't leave it like that and come back to it later. You need to right away wipe off your excess. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and put the rest on, and I'll show you the final step in just a moment. Okay, as you can easily see, I've gotten all the gold pretty consistently over this whole guy. Any place, and I put quite a bit on him so you could see it real well. And it looks like it's done, but let me show you one final thing. These are just the paper pieces that I used before. Watch this, I'm just buffing it out, and I always hold it with one and buff with the other. Look at that, can you see the difference? It really shines it up, and that's because, and it helps protect it. That's because there's a wax within this stuff that puts a nice finish on it. Very little work now, and it buffs it up just beautifully. What do you do with all that plastic fruit that you find? Actually, most of the time you pass up. Here's a great way to use it, and it really is great. You can find it often in secondhand stores in bags like this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put it close together, putting the side that I will probably demonstrate with up. Now you'll notice I have a lot of grapes, and that's because, first of all, there's a lot of grapes that are being sold right now, but also I like the grapes. So I'm going to put them all, and you'll notice I'm putting this fruit pretty close together, like I said. You don't want to waste space. Oh, nice plum. I don't know about the bananas. Maybe I'll use them, maybe I won't, but I'll prepare them just in case. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a very, very fine sand, and this sand it can be called many different names, like a scenic sand, and you'll see that it's kind of an off-white color. To that, I'm going to add probably about 1/3 glitter, maybe even less. It's not going to take quite as much as what you think. You know, the sugared fruit is so popular right now. It looks just great. Actually, I'm going to add more. This is a way of having that look without having the fruit go bad. Just taking a little piece of plastic. When you punch in the lid, sometimes that plastic will come down, so it's nice if you can get it out before you shake it on the fruit. Actually, this is a Ziploc bag. And what I can do is put it together, give it a twist, and shake it. Okay? Oh, there, that's starting to look good. What I'm wanting is just a nice sugared look. And as you can see, that has a nice sugared look without looking just like glitter. Now, how are you going to get this to stick on your fruit? When you make sugared fruit, you first brush on an egg white and then you put sugar on. So the egg white is the fixative. Well, obviously we're not going to use egg white on this, and so I'm using a spray adhesive. I really like the 3M brand the best. I think it has a tendency to stay better. Now, what I'm going to do, after shaking it up, be careful where you spray this. This will stay sticky for forever. You'll notice I pulse. I often will pulse things on instead of just spraying hard. I think you're wasting a little bit less. I'm going to try to get it on the sides a little bit. And you'll notice I'm doing it all at once. You know, be careful. You'll see I have the black plastic here, a big black plastic sack. I remember the first time I ever used this, I was covering a lampshade. I oversprayed, and I had to try to cut some of my family room carpet off because that adhesive wouldn't quit being sticky. My husband never knew about it till years later. I was telling at a workshop what I had done. And I look in the back, I forgot he was back there, and he's looking at me, wondering what else he had missed that I had done. Okay, I am now going to take this mixture and just lightly sprinkle it over everything. Ooh, this is so pretty. Now, what can you use this sugared fruit for? And of course, it's not real sugared fruit, but it does give that appearance. You can do all kinds of great things with it. I personally prefer putting it on a wreath. That wreath is going to be beautiful, but in addition to being beautiful, you can stick your punch bowl on the inside of it, of the wreath, especially if you have like little white twinkle lights. And imagine that at Christmas time. Oh, how gorgeous that would be. And as you see, I'm not using tons and tons of this. Just sprinkling it out. Really goes quite a long way. And I'm only doing one side. I want a little bit of the natural fruit. It's not very natural looking, but if it were the natural fruit look to shine through. That doesn't bother me at all. You can put it on. You could actually, if you want to, you can turn the fruit over and put it on the other side as well. Now, after this has dried, I will often put on, if I want it to last from year to year to year, after it kind of dries and sticks on nicely, I will then take a clear varnish and spray that, and that'll help it to where it doesn't knock off quite so easily. Okay, now that I've got it done, I'm going to stand up here so I can see it a little bit better. Okay, I'm going to begin to place the fruit. And you know, you can come back and wire this on and it looks just great. Look at this. Isn't that wonderful looking? This is so beautiful. Whether you're doing a swag, a wreath, or even using it on your dining room table at Christmas to decorate, it's just beautiful. Look at these. And what I'm doing is I'm just kind of somewhat uniformly placing the grapes around the whole piece. And then I can come back and add some other fruits to it. Let me put that one in here. I love pears. If you got the kitchen video, you would know that. There's an apple. Just begin to add your fruit. And as you can see, I'm going to need a whole lot more fruit than what I have, but you can get the overall feel of it. Ooh, look at this piece. Here's a plum that I'll stick down over in here. Banana over in here. And as you can see, that's really starting off nicely. By the time, and you know, I might even put my punch bowl on something to bring it up a little bit higher. But look at that, what a dramatic centerpiece. It's just really beautiful. And like I said, if you wanted to, I would hang it up if you were going to make a wreath that would hang on the wall, because obviously your grapes won't go that direction. If it's hanging up, you would need them to hang in the right direction. What a beautiful look out of such an ugly thing as plastic fruit.